So for number 4, it says select all expressions that show the distance between point A is -9, and point B, which is -2. Okay, so I tried to actually mark them, did a horrible job at it. But anyways, we're trying to see which expressions equal the distance between these two numbers. So let's actually look at that. The distance between -9 and -2, if I were to count, are 1. So remember, you go from, you count the space in between, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so the distance between -9 and -2 is 7 units. So we're going to actually go over here and write 7 units. Okay, so now what I want to do is figure out, well, which expression actually equals 7 units. So let's figure this out, right? Because there's more than one. So if I have 9 minus 2, 9 minus 2 equals 7. So obviously A is one of the answers, so I'm going to check it off. So here you're going to check it off, okay? Now, second one. What we have is -2 minus -9. Remember in the first problem, what we learned, this is equals, is that taking away a negative, so subtracting a negative means a positive. So that's actually the same as -2 plus 9. If I have -2 plus 9, that means I have 2 negatives and I'm adding 9 positives to that. So when you think about it, we're technically, remember, you find the difference between the two numbers. So the difference between 2 and 9 is 7, but I have more positives than I do negatives, so my answer will be +7. Another way that you could look at it, if you just want to remember how to add positive and negative numbers, is I have 2 negatives, 9 positives. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now positive and negatives always cancel each other out, so these get canceled out, and what you're left with is 7 positives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7. Next, this should have been the absolute value of -9 minus the absolute value of -2. Remember, absolute value means the distance between that number and 0, so it's always positive. So the absolute value of -9 is just 9, minus the absolute value of -2 is 2. And that also will give me 7. So far, we have A gives me 7, B gives me 7, C gives me 7. So let's try this last one. So we're going to do -9 minus -2. Remember, when we see subtracting a negative, we're just going to write it as -9 plus 2. Now this one's a little bit different, right? Now I have 9 negatives and 2 positives. So it's kind of flipped, right? You have 9 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2 positives. And here, what you're left with, if I draw it out, is 7 negatives. Which makes sense because here you have more negatives. You have 9 negatives. You have more negatives than you do positives. So your answer is -7, not +7. So D does not equal 7 units. Now, what I want you to remember is whenever you are adding positive and negative numbers together, you are finding the difference between them. And then your final answer depends on if you have more negatives than you do positives. So for example, the difference between 9 minus 2, 9 and 2 is 7. But because I have more negatives than positives, it would be -7. So you would check all 3.